Here. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. In the name of Allah, the most merciful, the beneficent. Inshallah, everybody is doing well, and welcome to another session of reflection of the principles on principles. So I'm getting more advanced with this technology. So Alhamdulillah, it's working out pretty well. Inshallah, you guys are enjoying the material. So basically, to sum up what we have talked about so far, basically, there are ways to pick a belief, and there are many beliefs out there that basically you may encounter, and they all bring you questions and raises questions in your mind about like which one is right, which one is not, and the best tool we can use in terms of figuring out the principles first is through our brain and logic. We're thinking beings, we can logically think. So we can definitely challenge any belief right now, and say why one belief is right and one is not, and what could have shortcomings and what have been corrupted or misleading or things like that. So we're talking about the principles, not the sides, which is like, for example, why do we pray? Why don't we pray? How do we pray? And, the time of prayer and the time of, fasting and all that. No, we're talking about the principles. So the principle, once we believe in the principles, then we slowly believe in the what comes with it.
Hey,
And
oof, no.
um, so one second, everybody. I need to mute a couple of people. Sorry. Okay. And I'm so sorry. It's being recorded too. So anyhow, so and in Islam, we're very much recommended to think and critically think. And critical thinking worth 1 hour of critical thinking worth 70 years of prayers. So we have those narrations about thinking and how is promoted. And then we talked about basically the oneness of God. We talked about some of the attributes of God. And then basically we came to a conclusion that we cannot confine God into a body or limit him in a space or time or anything like that. Now, here's a question. Why do we say him, not her? And why do we say, we don't find any other pronouns for him? So basically, it comes from the language itself. So the word Allah is a masculine name. That's all. So we're not putting genders for him. We're just basically using the word that is masculine, and we're saying that Allah is a masculine name. So that's why we say him, he, whatever. Plus, it doesn't really matter because is this being that we're talking about, the creator, the supreme creator, is not gender limited, right? So it's not like he has a gender or he has a hand or he has a foot. Unfortunately, some sects of Islam and some even other religions believe in the putting body for God and stuff like that. So once you put these basically body or time and things like that, then basically you're limiting God. And then we talked about the oneness of God, and we said that God has to be one. So if we have, for example, just for the sake of argument, we have two gods, and they're both acting the same. So, okay, that's one God. Then it doesn't make sense to say there are two gods. They're both, acting the same. But if we have two gods independently acting, then they would basically destroy the world. Why? Because both of them have the attributes of creation, both of them have the attributes of justice, and they have plans and all that, all the attributes. So again, if that God is, if you divide it in two and say there are two gods, but they have similar, not only similar, but exact same act, then it's one. It doesn't make sense to say that there are two. But then if you are saying that they're separate entities, but similar attributes, but they have independent thinking and control, then yes, it's gonna destroy the world. And then basically we got to the point that we're talking about some attributes of God. Now, one of the attributes of God is basically He's all knowing. Okay, so He's all knowing. Now, that could raise up few questions. Is like, well, if God is all knowing, that means Allah knows before, during, and after. So Allah knows that, for example, if He created Hashem will take these steps and he will fail. Or no, he will prevail. Or no, he will be, okay stage. So basically it would be like, well, if Allah knew that, what the end result is, then what, I mean, it doesn't make sense, just creating just because and letting people go through, 70 years, 50 years, 20 years of life and then die and then be judged and sent to the basically where Allah knew it's going to end up. Basically, it's God's creation and God's rule. Okay, so God created this world beautifully, and He has later on, we're going to get into more details about the examples that He created and the insan al kamil, the complete human being. And Allah wants to show us complete human. The complete human would be, for example, Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and the Imam of our time, Al Mahdi, and the progeny of the Prophet. Those are the complete humans. So, and then, well, does the other prophets fall in the same category? We can say that other prophets looked up to the Prophet Muhammad. They looked up to the progeny of the Prophet. And you will see that when we discuss Islam, there's no end to it. There's no end to all the knowledge that we have been given. And the knowledge that we have been given is not that much. I mean, compared to when the Al Mahdi will come back and basically alongside will Messiah come with him, and Prophet Hudor will come with him, Idris will come with him. There are several other prophets that will come with Al Mahdi, and they will basically rule the world the way it should be ruled. Okay, but different discussion. Again, we don't want to get into it yet. But Allah knowing everything doesn't mean that He is also making us into doing things. So, or He's not forcing us to basically get into heaven or hell. It's just pretty much a very low, lame like example where there's a teacher and that teacher has a bunch of students. Among those students, the teacher can tell a student who will be a student, will succeed, and will finish the class and course with a high grade versus a student who doesn't pay attention, always slacks, doesn't do his homework. He knows pretty much right off the bat that that person will fail the class. So did the teacher make that person fail, or did that teacher make that other student get an A? No, even though it does happen here there in on our imperfect world. But yeah, the teacher can see that somebody who's trying hard will succeed, and the one who doesn't will fail. So that knowledge doesn't force or make one succeed over the other. So having knowledge, just having knowledge, it doesn't mean that basically he is also responsible for the failure or success. There's another example. Let's say there's somebody on top of a building and he looks down the corner of a street. So there's a cross street and there's a person standing on top and he's looking down. He sees one car coming from one street and then the other car is coming from the other street. They're crossing each other and they're both speeding, and all of a sudden he sees a crash. Well, did he make that crash happen? No, but he knew that seeing two cars speeding at the same speed from two different directions, they will cross at this point and there will be a crash. But he wasn't responsible for it. Then we'll take you one more step. So if that's the case, did like the God's influence on this earth, is it that he's always influential or is it not? Do we have the freedom to choose which path we want to take, or does he make us choose a path? So it's called the Jabr Ikhtiyar. Jabr means he demands, he basically makes you do something, okay? And then ikhtiyar is that you have the choice. So again, we'll go back to the ideology and thinking process of some school of thoughts and why they thought that they should promote one philosophy over another. Is that a lot of people at the beginning of Islam, without accepting or without following the guidance of the Prophet and the progeny, because Imam Ali was there. If they would have asked them, if they would have followed him, they wouldn't go straight. They wouldn't be imposed, you know, imposed, wrongful acts and oppression and all that. They wouldn't have gone through such hardship with the first caliphs. So the first caliphs came and promoted the idea of Jabr, which is because God has all control and we just do what God wishes us to do. That's it. God is in control of this whole world and you have no choice but to follow his order. And whatever happens is because God let it happen. For example, if God didn't want, for example, Abu Bakr to become the first Khalifa, he wouldn't have let Abu Bakr become the first Khalifa. God is so great, God is so powerful that he could have stopped Abu Bakr from becoming Khalifa. Or the other Khulafa actually came, except for Imam Ali, which was basically people's choice. And they went and begged Imam Ali to become the Khalifa. But again, we're not getting into details, but that's the ideology and the philosophy they picked and they kept on dwelling into people's head to say, well, I am the right person to rule because God didn't stop me. And God accepted it because I became the person who ruled this, basically Islamic territories and stuff. And then there is another group that came and said, no, God lets you be free. You have choice. You can do whatever you want. God doesn't stop me, for example, slapping myself. Okay, there you go. So did God, if God was all powerful, would have said, you know what, Hashem, that's a crazy thing to do. You shouldn't have slapped yourself. You keep slapping yourself. Well, then God has to stop me here, right? That's a crazy thing to do. So God should stop me. No, so it's not all choice either. So you can't assume that everything we do in this world is by your choice. So what is it then? So it's something in the middle. So as Imam Sadiq said, and it's interesting because this whole story of Jabr and Ikhtiyar was there, among the people. But then you hear from Imam Sadiq. Why? Because that was the time that most people were, number one, thirsty to hear and learn the right Islam. Number two, there was a little bit of room to breathe for the Muslims to basically indulge in discussions and stuff, because the first two Khalifa and the third one also, they came and destroyed all the narrations that people had. They were even against having Quran in people's hands. They were saying that Quran should be just memorized. You should not have it in paper. So they abandoned people, the first two Khalifa, they abandoned people from having a complete Quran in their hands. And the first two Khalifa pretty much destroyed all the narrations that people had written. And basically, Uthman also followed the same rule. But then during Ottoman time, due to the misguidance of most people, and Uthman was a little bit more, how should I say, wishy-washy versus like Umar and Abu Bakr. And during Abu Bakr, actually, Umar was ruling. Abu Bakr was more like a symbolic thing. Anyhow, we're not going to get into much detail, but it was basically during Uthman that they announced and said, let's bring all your Qurans and let's compare and unify this book. It was the first time that actually all these papers and written Quran that was laying in people's homes came and they put it together. And then Imam Ali brought his Quran. But then his Quran had tafsir, had a lot of explanation about every ayah. So it was a huge book. And then at the time, whoever they were, basically, I guess they had a shura, a discussion among themselves, and they decided to pick one Quran. And Imam Ali accepted the Quran too. And then all the Imams followed, they accepted the same Quran. So it's not like it was forced to us to accept this Quran. No, all the Imams approved it. It's not like it wasn't written. No, it was written during the Prophet time, and all the Imams also proofreaded, and they also authenticized the Quran too. So the Quran that we have is the same Quran that was revealed and on. So it has not changed at all. We do have some extremists in Sunnah, and we have some extremists in Shia that they say, oh, part of it is deleted or omitted, and this and that. No, it's not. Okay, it's the same Quran, and not only there is a math between the verses of Quran. Not only this, the balance of Quran. Not only that there are so many millions of people who have memorized Quran and they know it better than their own kids. Not only there's a science behind it and all that, but also, we know that historically it's the same one, and the Imams also have gone by it, and we have seen the effect of Quran being alive. Quran is alive. Believe it or not, we've seen so many miracles through Quran. So here we're not promoting Quran yet. We're still talking about Tawheed. We're still talking about Allah's creation. So we get to this conclusion that it's not either a force by Allah, it's not jabr, and it's not 100% choice. It's amrun bayna amrain. It is the matter of between the two. So how does that work? Let's say there's a freeway, and in the free and going to the free, like above the basically the side medians, there's a person standing. And that person wants to cross the freeway. Now, crossing the freeway is dangerous for any pedestrian, and it's illegal, right? It is illegal. So if that person chooses to cross the freeway, they have the choice to do so, right? And does. Now, what happens? We'll say that he crosses safely, or no, he has an accident. That doesn't matter. Then you have another freeway that the person is standing on top and wants to go down the hill and basically the median and go inside the freeway. But then there's a fence. So the fence stops the person from crossing, right? So Allah's work and hikmah, his wisdom is very, very important. Allah is not just knowing. He has also wisdom too, right? So Allah's wisdom sometimes creates that fence, sometimes does not leave a fence. So that person's choice is to cross the freeway or jump over the fence and try to cross it or not. That's also a choice. So if Allah takes the fence away and the person walks into the freeway, it does not mean that Allah is allowing this person, and this person is called Rafi'ul Mas'uliyah. Okay, so it's not like Allah just lifts the responsibility and says, okay, since I didn't put a fence there, you cross, it's okay then. No, it doesn't mean that way. So if God puts a fence or it doesn't put a fence, it allows something to happen or it doesn't allow something to happen, it's related to his wisdom. And our choice of doing something or not doing something is also our choice. Okay. Another example would be what Imam Sadiq said was if you have, for example, you're standing, okay, and you lift one foot up. That's your choice, right? And then the second time I say lift the second foot up, right? So you have one foot up, and then I tell you to lift the second foot up. That's also your choice. But then falling down and gravity working on you is not your choice. You see, so there's rules that Allah puts in this world that, and then you have choices too. You pick your choice, you go a path, then you have to face the consequences or the reward, right? And then imma shakiran wa imma kafura, right? And then basically, if Allah allows something or basically withholds you from doing something, that's also His wisdom. Okay, so we have seen, like for example, somebody who basically got into an accident. Okay, or like for example, if you look up Cat Stephen, Cat Stephen. I don't know if we talked about it earlier in our lecture. Cat Stephen chose to get into the water, right? He went to visit his sponsor in California, and he was walking by the shore, and he walked into the water, and all of a sudden the water pulled him in, and he was about to drown. So just talking about the basics of this physics and life, he should have drowned, right? Somebody who gets into the ocean and the water is so wild and angry and pulls somebody into the water, that person should die, basically, right? But then Allah didn't let him die, right? So there he made a choice again. He chose to walk into the water pulled him in. That's like first choice and then the force, right? And then in the water, he started praying for God and said that, God, if you save me, I'm going to look for you. So he prayed and Allah saved him. So again, here Allah intervenes. So it's a wisdom behind it too. It's not just, do's or don'ts. So anyway, so that's about the Jabr wa Ikhtiyar. Again, are we free to choose what we do and do we make our own decisions? Yes. Does Allah have 100% control on us? Does He give us the power? Does He allow us to do things? Sometimes yes, sometimes no. That's all in Allah's hand. So saying basically the Jabr and Ikhtiyar will get us to the next subject, which is, well, that also is related to the justice of God. So is God just or not? Like, for example, the things that are happening in this world. What's happening in Gaza, what's happening in Rafah, what's happening in Middle East and the bombardment stuff. Okay, let's come home and here in United States, what's going on in United States? Basically, somebody goes and murders like 5, 6 people, and he ends up in prison for I don't know, for 10, 20 years, 50 years. Is that justice? What's going on? Well, Number one, this world was not created as to have the 100% justice. Okay, so the ultimate, the absolute justice happens in the hereafter, not in this world. So we have to follow God's rules. Okay, this is one of the things I would like you guys to think about tonight, is that what this world is basically a game created by Allah. If you follow somebody else's game and you follow somebody else's game plan, you will fail. There is a narration from the Prophet Muhammad about Prophet David. So David meets Allah, and Allah, God, well, in basically in how should I say, the revelation and the inspiration and all that. So he's communicating with Allah, and Allah says, "Ya Dawood, anta tuhib wa ana uhib." Oh David, you like some things and I like some things, and you want some things and I want some things. If you want what I want, if you like what I like, you will get it. But if you don't like or you don't want what I want, I will make you run around so much until you want what I want. So, yes, you do have the choice to choose what you want, but sometimes Allah will make you run around so much that you end up to wanting Him and His way, which is a mercy of Allah. That's the mercy of Allah. So, mercy of Allah sometimes plays in giving you what you want and giving you more than what you want, right? And then there mercy of Allah that He takes away things from you. And not only that, He gives you a little bit hardship too. So we as Muslims believe any believer will be challenged by Allah's test and hardships and all that. So it's called bala. So if you are not having a bala, if your life seems to be working out just perfect and all that every day, like it's going your way, then probably you should worry, okay? Because this world is not made for comfort. إِنَّا خَلَقْنَا الْإِنسَانَ فِي كَبَدٍ, right? We have created him in hardship. Or Imam Hussein says, إِنَّ الدُّنْيَا سِجْنُ الْمُؤْمِنِ وَجَنَّةُ الْكَافِرِ. This dunya is the garden of, I'm sorry, is the prison of the believer and the garden of the unbeliever. It doesn't mean that all Muslims and all that we all should be depressed and we shouldn't be working and anyway we have to go through a hardship and we have to become poor and become beggars and we shouldn't succeed. No, it doesn't mean any of that. No, actually, a believer is happy. A believer is always happy. Actually, an Eid or a holiday for a believer, we know that we have, for example, holidays. Let's say the Eid al-Fitr, we have Eid al-Adha, we have Eid al-Qadir, we have some, holidays here and there. And then we have a holiday which is Fridays, is considered as a holiday. It's just like having Sundays for Christians, and then or Saturdays for, well, Saturdays is not really a holiday for Jewish people because they can't do anything but they have to practice Sabbath. But anyway, it's a holiday, and there's also another holiday, which is the day a mu'min, a believer, does not do sin. That's a holiday. So a day that passes and you do muhasaba, you basically count your deeds and say, "Oh, Ya Allah, I did not commit any sin today." That's a holiday. That's something you want to be really happy. Let's put a little twist of mystic, ideology around it too. The mystics say that dancing that you see basically among different populations and different cultures, that's not dance. The real dance is for someone who is a believer and reaches absolute knowledge, or reaches absolute perfection, or reaches basically a correct conclusion for something, and then whoever was in such um, joy of basically he was in joy of reaching the truth, all of a sudden he prostrates and says, "Oh, thank you, God." That's the real dance, not the monkey dance that you see people do. Okay, that's monkey dance. That's imitations. Okay, but the real dance is when you pray, when you bow down to Allah, when you prostrate. That's the real dance. So that's what the mystics people say about prayer. It's a type of dance, basically. And we thank Allah that our religion is so rich that I seriously I know this little, not much, but this little knowledge gives me so much joy and happiness that I'm like, Ya Allah, thank you so much. And my dance would be, let me just bow down, let me just prostrate and thank Allah for guiding me through this religion too. We talked about Jabr Ikhtiyar, right? We Rafa al-Mas'uliyah, and then we talked about basically knowledge of Allah that does not force us into success or failure. We talked about Allah's wisdom behind things, if it happens or it doesn't happen, if He stops us from something or not. So Allah is just. So we're going to give you a little example of justice of Allah, the absolute justice of Allah that happens. Okay. Um, so here's the absolute justice of Allah that happens later. In this world, we have somebody, his name was Saddam. We have somebody, his name was Hitler. We had somebody like Genghis Khan. We had all these tyrants who came and basically brutally killed people, brutally killed innocent people. Right now we have Netanyahu. So if we have these tyrants in this world that killed millions of people, let's say Saddam, for example, he killed many people. He killed many Iranians. He killed many of his own people. He poisoned, for example, a river into a village, and he killed all the people in the village. He used, chemical gas and chemical warfare and all that. And then they catch him and they just hang him. Do you think that's justice? Just by hanging him and it's done? Or do we say, no, we're going to torture him? You know what? We're gonna stick him with, I don't know, skewers, and I don't know. We poke him until he dies, for example. Is that justice? How many pokes are you gonna put in there? How many lives would you bring back by just poking him? How many lives would you? How many orphans would be happy to just see this guy is being tortured? Is it even right to torture somebody? No. Islamically, we don't allow even the enemies to be tortured, right? So it's against our Islamic belief to torture any being, No, we end the life of a tyrant like that, yes, and he deserves to be having capital punishment, just like we have capital punishment everywhere in the world. Some countries have said, okay, we don't do capital punishment. Like, for example, the United States says that we don't do capital punishment. It's not true. 40, I believe 40 states have capital punishment, if I'm not mistaken. It's a big number of states who have the law for capital punishment. And yes, hanging him was not enough, right? So what happens is he goes to hereafter, he will be judged by Allah, and then he will receive its eternal punishment that's worth getting through, that's worth giving him, right? So that's what justice is, the ultimate justice. And those orphans, what happens? Those children who were killed, what happens? they get the reward of eternal heaven. What else do we want? Do we want this world? Do we really want this world? Are, how much is this world worth to you? Is it worth a lie? Is it worth stealing? Is it worth killing somebody else? Is it worth taking the life and family and basically the belongings of some innocent person? And then what? You're gonna die and leave it behind. It's worth nothing. This world doesn't worth anything. The only the only world that worth something is the world that builds your hereafter. Al-dunya mazra'atul akhirah. This world is the farm of the hereafter. Whatever you plant in this world, you will get it in the hereafter. Okay? That's part of the justice of Allah. Whatever we strive, whatever we work on, we work on ourselves, we work for our family, we work for this world, we work for the people for the sake of Allah. Only and only for the sake of Allah, then it's worth something. Let's say Edison, he came up with electricity, and wow, mashallah, we have lights, and every time lights go out, everybody says, Allahumma salli ala Muhammad. When the lights come on, Allahumma salli ala Muhammad. What? We're praising praising the Prophet and praising this and that. But why? Right? And then we're saying, well, does this guy go to heaven or hell? Right? Number one, we're not the judge. Allah knows how to judge him, not me, right? Not you. So we don't know what his life situation was. We don't know what he went through. We don't know what was on his mind, really. But we know, for example, that he stole somebody else's system. We know that, for example, he put out two people out of business, for example, but was it his evil thought to put people out of business? We don't know. But that's up to Allah. The justice of somebody going to heaven or hell is left for Allah. We cannot judge anybody that would that person go to heaven or hell. We can give assumption for somebody who is very obvious. Like, for example, Netanyahu. That's very obvious. Saddam, very obvious. Hitler, very obvious. These people are obvious, that they were evil. Okay. And then we have some people who are very obvious, the Maraja that we have that are very, very pious, and they're very, very knowledgeable, and they're helping people and this and that. We can tell some of the obvious, but some gray area, we can't. But then we need to pass some judgment here and there. Why? Because we have to save ourselves from hell. We have to save ourselves from going astray. So, for example, when Amir al-Mu'minin Imam Ali says, pick your friends. When you pick your friends, what are you doing? What are you doing? Basically, you're judging your friends. You're going to say, I'm going to be your friend, or you're not going to be friends with that person, right? So you're passing judgment already, right? But you're not sending them to heaven or hell. No, you're protecting yourself from somebody who may harm your belief, who may harm your life or something like that, okay? So yes, we are passing judgment against other people, but it's not judgment to send them heaven or hell, because that's not our job. Our job is to protect ourselves from being harmed by somebody else. Okay? So I don't know why we got to this point, but Imam Ali says, tell me your friends, I will tell you who you are. Your friends are the fragrant, they're like the cologne, they're like the perfume on you. Your friends have effect on you. Okay. So just because we got into this subject, I want you to tell you that being an oddball is not bad. Being odd is not bad. It's okay. We all can be different. We all can be different, having our own ideology, our own basically way of life. And people have to respect us as we respect them. We respect everybody, right? I mean, even the worst person on this earth, we would not even use bad word against them. We do not cuss even our enemy. These are all against Islam. Islam says you cannot cuss anybody. That's it. whether he's good or bad. When you say, for example, for
Mm.
people who say la'natullah ala so and so and so, la'na is not cussing. La'na is taking away Allah's mercy from somebody. You're just praying that Allah will take His mercy away from somebody. That's it. It's not even cursing. It's not using bad word, obscene words, you know. So I'll tell you this story. It was interesting. We went to Hajj with my good friend Dr. Muhammad Bazzi, and he had one of those Mafatih al-Janan. It's a book full of supplications, and the police force of Saudi took the book and said, "You cannot take this book inside." And we said, "Why?" He said, "Fiha sabbul khulafa." Like there's cussing of the khulafa in there. And I immediately told him, "What? What are you talking about? Cursing and cussing the khulafa? No way, there's none. There's nothing like that in this book. Find it for me. I'll tear it for you. I'll tear it up out for you." And the guy kept on looking back and forth, back and forth. And he's like, "Yeah, take it." Because I knew if he had even found whatever part that says la'natullah ala so and so, he would that would not be a sub. That's not a sub. That's la'an. It's different, right? So you're wishing to Allah take His mercy away, for example, from Saddam. Because why? Because we saw the crimes he did. We saw the oppression that he did, right? We saw what Netanyahu is doing. We're seeing it. So we say, Ya Allah, lift your mercy on from him. Sometimes we even say, Ya Allah, if he's well worth guiding, if he's guidable, guide him. If he's not guidable, take him away. Sometimes we make prayers like that. So we're pretty fair when it comes to praying and respecting others even when we don't agree with them. All right, so where did we end? So basically we talked about Tawheed, we talked about Jabr and Ikhtiyar, and we talked about Adl of Allah. So part of the justice of Allah, basically we're going to end with this, is the prophethood. So we say prophethood right now. Then we talk about hereafter a little bit more because through our prophethood, we know what is going on in the hereafter. Okay, we'll talk about prophethood. What is it? What does it mean to be a prophet and not? What sets the difference between those two? And then the justice of Allah demands that if He created us, which He did, he would not, because He's so wise, He's all knowing, He's so knowledgeable, He's merciful, He has all these good attributes, right? That once He creates us, He cannot just let us go. Just grow just like any, I don't know, deer in the farm or, deer in the jungles or, lions and bears and stuff like no, we're not. We're intelligent people. So Allah has to come up a way to guide us too. He cannot just let us go. This guidance from Allah is from His rububiyat, from His nourishment attributes. Okay? Nourishment attributes, as we said, there's rububiyat and there's dhati, right? There's dhati and rububiyat, dhati wa fi'li, and then from fi'li we went to rububiyat. So basically Allah is nurturing being, okay? So He has to make sure we have enough to eat. We have enough to survive. Human beings do have enough on this earth to live side by side, nice and comfortable and peacefully. Okay, there's enough to go around. We don't have to be at wars at all. Allah created this earth to have enough substance and abundance of it, right? It's us humans that destroy it. It's us humans that we make the choice to destroy it, okay? So Allah gives us enough to eat, will give us enough guidance to live, and every once in a while He sends basically a message to tell us, come back to Allah. Okay, so I will finish this part before we start the prophethood with this little statement, basically, that there are two ways to grow. One way you can grow by following Allah's order, like for example, praying, fasting, doing all those little bonuses here and there, salawat, I don't know, you have so many of it, right? You're reading ziyarah and all that, okay? There's another way that Allah gives you hardship, okay? For example, all of a sudden, Allah takes away Prophet Muhammad's father. Abdullah dies before he is born. Then, when he's 6 years old, he takes his mother away. And then, when he's 8 years old, he takes his loving, dear uncle away. I mean, grandpa away, right? So, see, one hardship after another hardship. And the prophets, all the prophets went through hardship. And the Prophet Muhammad said, no prophet went as much hardship as I did. So the most hardship that any prophet went through was Prophet Muhammad. But they all went through hardship. None of them had an easy time. Even Prophet Solomon, that was in control of this whole world, he didn't even have it the easiest way, right? He didn't have it all his way. You read the Quran, there are times that Allah tests Sulaiman too. Okay, so the bala that Allah gives us is another way we can grow, right? But within these two ways, one way to follow Allah's order to get somewhere, versus Allah gives us bala, the one that Allah gives us bala and will give us hardship, there is more growth and much faster and much more leaping and bigger jump. But it also requires our submission, our patience, our basically going with Allah's rule. So our loyalty and all that. So we've seen so many people, they lose a loved one, all of a sudden all these obscene sentences come out. Oh God, this time you made a mistake. Astaghfirullah. What are you talking about? What do you mean, Allah, you made a mistake this time? No, 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 no. Hold on. Hold your horses. Where are you going with this statement? This is blasphemy. You can't say that, because Allah knows what He's doing, obviously. For sure, He knows what He's doing, and He will do what He wants to do. That's it, right? So you have to be submissive. Now, the balas that we go through, there are two ways. The hardship that Allah gives us. One, to make us grow, and another is to wash our previous sins. So we're branching, right? One is wajibat that we do, we follow Allah to grow and all that, the salat and the prayers and all that, the fasting, reading Quran and all that. And then there's a way that Allah gives us hardship. So if Allah is giving us hardship, there's two things. One could be washing our sins that we had done before. One, to make us grow and have a bigger jump and leap. So don't worry about getting through hardship. Just think of Allah every time you go through hardship, and also think of a straight, clean, halal way of solving the problem too. Okay? Allah has solutions for all our problems. We'll seek His guidance, we seek His help. And without any further ado, we're gonna ask you guys basically for prayers, because Salat is around the corner. And I will shut this recording just in case if anybody had any questions. Al-Tamas Dua, thank you so much for listening. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.